everybody, Steve the Amateur Historian is passing by the iconic Pioneer Courthouse. I was going to say Pioneer Courthouse Square because that's where I was looking. And I'm not stopping here though, I'm just transporting myself from one crime location to another. And for my case, I'm trying to get to the Morgan building. Like most of these buildings, there's a lot of old towering up buildings in this area. And the Morgan building is just another one of them. And that's where I'm headed to on a new episode of Historic Murders of Portland. I'm not being an idiot and going the wrong way. I swear I saw a sign that said like the Pacific building, but by my notes I should be going that way. I can't tell what this building is. I'm questioning everything I've ever done with my life. Nah. No, I'm right. I thought I saw a sign over there that said Morgan building. I'm like, wait a minute. But no, I'm pretty sure it's this building, this brick building right here, which would be right at the right spot, right where it should be. With that drama taken care of, today I've got for you barbershop murder. Seriously, I guess back in the day, there used to be a barbershop in this building up here. I mean, way back in the day. It says it was in the basement. That's how it was described in the newspapers, that there was a barber shop in the basement of this building. So I'm wondering, I want to at least take a look and see. It looks like there's a bunch of different little businesses on the ground floor, but I'm wondering if there's actually still, like, it's been decades, so things change, but I'm wondering if there's any, like, stairwells leading down deep into the building here, because yep, this is the one, the Morgan building. This is where I want to be. So I didn't see anything along the front. I was walking along the side and didn't see anything, but I just want to see if there's any like anything remotely resembling. Oh, this is cute. I haven't seen this before. It's like a little mall area. I might have investigated that further, but you know, buildings like this, there was like a security guy sitting there, so I didn't want to push my luck. But they said that there's a stairwell leading down to a parking garage under the building, and I can't even see where that parking garage would be at. Oh, except, you know, like maybe right here. Parking garage. So yeah, you know, there's space underneath the building. Wouldn't surprise me at all if, you know, down in that general area that's now parking garage space, if that's where the actual barbershop was located, based on, you know, newspapers saying that it was in the basement of the building. These buildings are great. So yeah, the Morgan building got this great rustic entrance, Got Morgan building there, Morgan building there, Morgan building there, Morgan building there. There's no question that this is the place that I want to be. Yeah, so just a big building, spanning the block along. This is Washington Street. Park Avenue's right there. 6th Avenue, or sorry, Broadway's right there. And then yeah, it stretches the whole block. And for our sake, it's Christmas Day. This is the second one. This is the second case I've covered that actually happened on Christmas. But anyway, it's Christmas Day, 1916. And again, I don't know where it would have been. I'm not seeing any. Maybe you had to go into the building itself to access the basement, but it seems like it was like one of these businesses where it was kind of just right out front. I was just wondering if maybe anywhere in this building there's like a little stairwell that goes down into a building or something, or some remains that would show that there were businesses that kind of went down below actual ground level. But whatever the case, it's, you know, it's Christmas Day and the barbershop's open. You know, you gotta make your money. And there was an individual by the name of Marcus H. McCall, which I just like the way that rolls off the tongue. Marcus H. McCall, who used to work at the barbershop that was in this building. And for whatever reasons, he was dismissed from his duties by a William A. Shaner. I think it's Shaner. Maybe Shanner, but that sounds weird. I'm going to say Shaner. William A. Shaner. Now, leads me to believe that maybe he was a manager of the place, someone that had some pull. Because around mid-morning, Christmas Day 1916, Marcus McCall comes in. He walks into the barbershop. He has his son with him. He has a little boy with him. And he walked in and without a second thought, found where Shaner was located, pulled out a gun and fired. Hit him 3 times. Hit him in the chest, hit him in the lungs. He dropped down and he was dead almost instantly. And it was a real quick event. And then he turned the gun on a person who was described as a porter working there. So I don't know if he was a porter for a barbershop. That sounds bizarre to me, but maybe that was the case. He may have also just been a porter that worked at the Morgan building that just happened to be in the area. And McCall turned the gun on him. This was a porter by the name of Ed Phillips. So Ed Phillips he obviously sees this guy's prepared to use his weapon, and the gun gets turned on him, and Ed Phillips sprints out of the barbershop out onto the street here, and Marcus McCall chased after him. So literally McCall was in there long enough to enter, find Shaner, which, you know, barbershops aren't that big. It's not like he would have had to traverse the building looking for this guy. Found him, popped 3 quick bullets into him, turned the gun on another guy, that guy ran out, and McCall ran out after him. I mean, honestly, it was probably like 30 seconds. And what's really tragic is he brought his son to see this. Some tells me Marcus McCall was a pretty messed up guy, who probably felt so justified in what he was. It was obvious that he had this plan, and it seemed like he felt very justified in what he was going to do. And he was so justified in it that he wanted to bring his son there to watch him do it. And then, of course, he chased this Ed Phillips guy out of the place and just left his son there at this barbershop with this guy, you know, on the floor bleeding out that his dad had just shot. Like, yeah, this Marcus McCall guy was a real swell fellow. Now, McCall he started working at the barbershop around the beginning of the month, so he'd been there for like a couple weeks. And by his account, there were issues between him and Shaner almost immediately. It was obvious that Shaner didn't like him, and there came a moment, it was December 22nd, so just 3 days before this shooting occurred, where Shaner came in and he said, you know, we gotta let somebody go. And essentially his reasoning for wanting to let somebody go was they needed to bring in someone new. So it was like, I want to bring in another person, so screw one of you, you're getting fired. And so of course if someone's got to get let go, you tend to let go of the person that you don't like very much. So it seems like William Shaner was directly, probably primarily involved in having Marcus McCall removed from his job here as a barber. So of course McCall held Shaner
loud as hell. So of course, McCall held Shaner personally responsible for his dismissal from his job, and he came back 3 days later, gun in hand. And he said in the aftermath he didn't regret one bit what he did, walking in there and gunning down William Shaner, shooting him right in the heart.
Anyway, back to the story at hand, because we still have McCall chasing Ed Phillips out of the establishment. It was reportedly somewhere along Washington, so somewhere around here. Now, based on the newspaper reports, Ed Phillips ran out of the building and started running east on Washington, which would be in this direction that I'm now going. And it seems McCall chased out after him, so they're both running east on Washington here. And then eventually Ed Phillips gets away, and McCall kind of gives up, puts his gun away, so he's just kind of, seemingly wandering the streets now. But it seems logical that around here, this is Broadway and Washington, and this is still the Morgan building just from the east side of it. It seems likely that he turned and started going this way, because this is the direction that he was known to walk in. And it was at this intersection. So this is Alder and Broadway, and this is where the Pantages Theater was located. I actually did a video last season talking about Herman P. Emery, who was gunned down in the Pantages Theater. And interestingly, it seems like McCall had just snapped, and he didn't even care whether he got caught, because he pulled it off pretty quick, and he's out on the streets. He's kind of free for a second, but he does the opposite of what somebody trying to escape would try to do. He didn't lay low. He didn't try to get out of town quickly. He was just on the streets here. And according to one newspaper article, he went up to the Pantages Theater, and he told an employee there by the name of H. Reagan exactly what he had done. I can only assume either he just wanted to tell somebody because he was so proud of himself, or he knew Reagan personally. It kind of didn't say in the article whether they were friends or not, so I don't really know what that was all about. But he just went up to him. We're barely a block away from where the shooting happened, and he's walking up to random people, and he told this guy in detail what had happened. And I think Reagan, tried to reason with him, and then he left again. And he continued, as it seems, up Broadway, except he was actually probably on the east side of Broadway. I'm on the west side of Broadway right now, because the Pantages was on that side. And only a few moments later, after leaving the Pantages, McCall ultimately ended up at the Jackson Tower right here, dead ahead. So McCall would have just been likely beelining it up Broadway on the east side of the street. I'm now on the east side of Broadway, where McCall would have been. So he likely chased Phillips out, ran up Washington, crossed Broadway, and then let him go. I don't know if he exactly had a beef with that guy, or if he was just losing it and he saw another guy there and was like, all right, you're next. So after leaving the Pantages, he arrived at the Jackson Tower. Here was a very prominent, famous location in Portland. And apparently there was another barbershop inside this building once upon a time. Don't think it's there anymore, but I guess barbers in general, I guess they kind of just know each other, because he showed up here at the Jackson Tower, and he went into this other barbershop where he knew another guy, and just like over at the Pantages, he revealed everything that he had just done to this one guy. So he was just going and encountering random people and just telling them what he had just done. So again, no objective to save himself or anything. And yeah, so he made it here. So we're about 3 blocks from the Morgan building now. And apparently after telling another colleague here at the Jackson Tower what he had just done, he walked straight to the jail. It didn't say in the newspaper exactly where that jail was, but it probably wasn't that far from here. and he just turned himself in. He didn't give a damn. He was proud of what he did. He felt justified. He'd probably convinced himself in the short time that he knew him that William Shaner was the biggest scumbag piece of shit that's ever lived, and he was vindicated in doing exactly what he did. I honestly think he thought that based on his behavior. The fact that he did not try to run away. He didn't try to run away from authorities. He did run away from his son. So, you know, murder and abandoning your kid at the murder site. Marcus McCall wasn't exactly a Boy Scout himself. So, the apprehension of McCall is pretty easy since they didn't have to apprehend him at all. He walked right into the police's gripping arms. And it only took till February of the next year, February 1917, for them to get him up on, you know, essentially sent to trial. And it wasn't, you know, obviously it was pretty clear that his attorneys were going to try to get him off with an insanity plea that either he was just crazy in general or in that moment he snapped, and whatever the case, he couldn't decipher right from wrong. That was obviously the defense they were going to go with, because this guy just walked into a place, shot someone, and then walked around town bragging about it. You'd think it would have been easy for them to get that plea, but because of just, it seemed pre-planned, there were witnesses, it was obvious what he did. He, you know, shot the guy 3 times in cold blood. He had motive to do it. It was obvious. And yeah, he was, the insanity defense did not work. He was convicted. They said it was only it took them only 40 minutes of deliberation before they convicted him of this murder. So Marcus McCall wasn't getting off. And that's the story, barbershop murder of William Shaner. So again, thank you so much for watching. And from Pioneer Courthouse Square, close to where the crime happened, this has been Steve the Amateur Historian, and I'll see you next time.